All right, so today I'm going to talk about predation, which is chapter 12. Here you can see a dragonfly larva, which is one of my favorite aquatic invertebrate predators. They have a lower jaw that's completely extendable. It actually reaches out maybe 3 times the length of their head to grasp at their prey. This one is eating a midge larva. So predation comes in lots of different forms. Predators can consume all or part of prey individuals. So carnivores eat other animals, herbivores eat eat plants, parasites feast on a host, sometimes, but most often not killing them. And then pathogens can be considered predators too because of the harm that they do and sometimes how they kill their hosts. Some organisms cross trophic boundaries. The book gives an example of sheep that have been known to eat ground nesting birds. Cows have been known to eat rabbits when they're low in phosphorus, when their diet is low in phosphorus. Wolves eat berries, nuts, and leaves in addition to meat. Omnivores have widely ranging diets, and parasitoids lay eggs on their host, and then their larvae, their young, eat and kill the host. So the diets of predators are often very broad, and that's in contrast to the diets of herbivores, which are often very narrow. So carnivores kill their prey, but herbivores usually don't kill the plants that they eat. They just might reduce their growth. Animal prey can evade predation, but plants can't. So there's all of these kinds of differences between carnivores and herbivores and carnivorous prey versus herbivorous prey. Plant prey is less nutritious than animal prey. As you can see on this graph, it shows animals having the highest nitrogen content. You can see that up here by their high nitrogen content in animals compared to seeds, and then the leaves of angiosperms, the leaves of gymnosperms, and then you can see how the phloem sap is a little bit more nutritious than the xylem sap, but has very low nitrogen content. So optimal foraging is this idea that diet is influenced by both encounter rates. So if the encounter rate is low, then predators will tend to be generalists because they will want to prey on lots of different things if it's hard to find a certain type of prey. And so a lot of carnivores are generalists. This is in contrast to handling time, like how long does it take for you to dismantle the prey, or how long does it take for you to eat all the leaves on a plant. And so if prey are easy to find but require lots of handling, then the predators will tend to be specialists. And so a lot of herbivores are specialists because their prey doesn't really run away from them, but it does take a while for them to handle their prey items. Herbivores can reduce plant growth, but sometimes they can actually increase that plant's productivity. And we'll talk about that more in further chapters. So there are some really cool adaptations to predation. So the predators have a variety of adaptations. One is the mode of attack. So some are searching predators, they hunt out their prey. Some kind of wait and pounce or strike. Some set traps. Some predators have adaptations like speed, like the cheetah, or jaw shape, like snakes, that allow them to swallow much larger prey than their own body size. So for example, if we had jaws like snakes, we would be able to swallow watermelons, which I think really puts it into perspective. Some predators invoke poisons or toxins. Some use mimicry to hide from their prey. And some produce toxic chemicals, or actually some can detox the chemicals produced by prey. So for example, the garter snake shown in the picture can eat the poisonous rough-skinned newt. Newts produce tetrodotoxin, TTX, and some snakes are more resistant to this toxin than others, but there's a trade-off. The snakes that are resistant to the toxin tend to be slower. Their metabolism and their whole manner is slower. So even though they can tolerate the toxin, they might not be as good at hunting. And there are some adaptations to predation. So for example, you can be really big, like an elephant. Doesn't have many predators because it's so big. It can be really fast, like a gazelle. You can have body armor, like this pangolin. You might have aposematic or warning coloration, like the nudibranch you can see in the picture, or you might have some kind of camouflage or crypsis. So if you have some mimicry that looks like something toxic, like what you see at the bottom is, it looks like that toxic snake. It's actually a flatworm that has the same coloration as toxic snakes. Camouflage is another good one. And then behaviors like hiding, burrowing, schooling, like fish or herds of animals are good ways to avoid predation. Then there's some adaptations to herbivory in plants. So things like producing huge numbers of seeds during mast years. And here you can see going back between 1995 and 2010, a whole variety of tree species and their seed production kind of spiking, along with the number of hantavirus cases, which, because hantavirus is carried by mice that are seed predators, you see kind of peaks in this hantavirus. Plants can also undergo what's called compensative growth, where they can increase their production after being exposed to herbivory. And they can induce defenses, things like chemical toxins, secondary compounds, or even some compounds they can release that will attract parasitoids. And these parasitoids will come and attack the herbivores that are chewing on their leaves, which is really cool. And then structural defenses like spines, thorns, and glochids. All right, so one of the examples that's really commonly used in predator chapters is the lynx and the hare. And the reason is that we have such great data going back 200 years based on the trapping records from Hudson Bay Company. And so if we look at these patterns in numbers of hares and numbers of lynx, we see these really cool oscillations and cycles. And the reason that we see these predator-prey population cycles are that, that various things can limit population growth. So food can limit prey populations. So we might see that as coming into some play, but it isn't enough to explain the full cycle that we see between lynx and hares. And the reasons are that some declining hare populations actually have enough food. So it's not the food that's causing their declines. And another thing is that when you add food, that doesn't prevent the hare from declining. So it's not just a food story. It's not just a predator story either. Predators can limit prey populations, but that's not enough to describe the full oscillation. So some hares that are exposed to predators start having dropping birth rates. And then those birth rates don't actually rebound until well after the predator is quite rare. So what's going on there? Well, it turns out that food and predators interact to alter hare populations. And so if you're taking statistics, this is kind of like a two-way ANOVA example where you have food, yes or no, predators, yes or no, and you have two interacting X variables. So it's possible that food and predators are interacting. And another example is that stress that's imposed by the predators can actually change the hormone levels in hares. So cortisol is a stress hormone, and it increases glucose to muscles, which allows them to run faster and longer. But cortisol also suppresses reproductive hormones. So females that give birth under high cortisol concentrations will have lower birth rates, and their young will also have lower birth rates. And so this is part of the story leading to these oscillations between hare and lynx. And so Volterra predator-prey models were proposed to kind of modify exponential growth and exponential in prey and exponential decline in predators. And these are the equations that we are going to use, where R is the population growth rate, N is the number of N is the number of prey, P is the number of predators, A is the capture efficiency rate, and B is the conversion efficiency rate. I'm going to go into more detail on all of these models in my Chalk Talks that come next. So be sure to watch the Chalk Talk videos for more detailed explanation of these models. And I apologize, at the top of my Chalk Talks, I misspelled Volterra on my whiteboard in all 3 videos. So please make a note of that. All right, great.